start with 3 sizes of lids, because this kind of cheats and makes it easier, because it is very hard to start off doing perfect circles. So we're gonna now we're using paint right around the edge. You dip one here, and that could be a little cleaner. And these don't have to be perfect, so if you're fine with that, then go ahead. But I want a couple extra clean lines, and you can turn it to get a little better bubble. So we'll do that with all of them. We'll turn, but you can see you still miss some. Let's do 3. And this is actually going to help later. We'll do a little bit of clean up. I'll show you to clean that edge up. Now, do our second size. And don't do all the same number. You want to vary it some. Now, there's our small. And make sure you don't use circles with a serrated edge, because it'll make your bubbles look chewy, and that looks kind of bad. So fix this one. Okay, and this is all about not being perfect. If you want perfect lessons, you're going to have to go someplace else, because it just doesn't work for me. Most of the things that look the smartest end up being mistakes anyway, that nobody knows were mistakes, and that's pretty good. Anyway, clean that little edge up right there. Go. Clean that little edge up right there. And you do this until you're satisfied. You don't have to do all of them, but sometimes it just makes some of them will stick out more than others, and you ought to go back and get those. But you can't overdo it, so let's mix up some low lights, which is going to be a medium blue that is just our base color with some white. And it is going to be on the lower side here of all of our bubbles. You want to make sure you keep your light source the same, no matter where it is, whether you decide to do it from this direction, or say from the bottom. All of them should be consistent. It confuses the eye if you do like one on one side, one like the highlight on one side and then the highlight on the other side on another one. It won't look right. And you don't want a bunch of people saying, that doesn't look right. Especially after you put your time into something. So, do this on all of these. And before we go to some of those little mistakes, there's some of those little hiccups. So, I'm going to pick up that. I'm going to pick up a couple of these. And what you're doing is taking your blue base coat and just using that almost as an eraser. And just going back and cleaning up your edges a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get rid of some of the bigger things that really look a little wrong. And remember, some of this is still kind of wet and gooey, so don't get in there too far because it'll actually make a whole lot more work for you. So, paper towel there. And for our highlights, we're just going to get some white. And we're going to go right here on the top edge. And on this one, for the larger bubbles, do larger highlights. Smaller bubbles do smaller highlights. We're not going to so much do that with our low lights, but we are with our highlights, because that'll give us a little more variety. Like so. That's a little bit much. There's that one. Now, we can come back in and make these a little, give it an extra layer, make it look a little stronger. But watch out for where your circles are still wet, because that'll smear. And let's say, just for sake of example, the worst case happens. There you go. It's not nearly so bad as you think. Just take your white that you have here and just drag it around, kind of clean that up. Same thing here. Drag it around and clean it up a little. We still got some of our blue low light, so we're going to go with that. I'm going to correct this. That one looks okay, but let's just put another layer on. And then let's just take our blue base coat. And we're going to come right through and just cover it back up. Just like this. And you'll have to give it a little while to dry. And you'll probably have to come back and do another coat just to make sure it's good and covered. But with acrylics, it's not really a catastrophe if you have an accident like that. With oil paint, you can go back and save it also, because you can usually just lift it out with turpentine. With watercolor, I'd say that's probably a bit of a catastrophe, because I don't really paint with watercolors. Acrylics are so much easier, they dry quicker. They're just so much more user-friendly. And if you're practicing and learning, you don't want to start off with something that's really hard. You want to actually start off with something that's kind of made for accidents. acrylics are very forgiving, so they're a very good option. Because you can paint over them and paint over them. And like paint your dark, paint your light, paint your dark, paint your light. And it doesn't get muddy, it doesn't look overworked. But some other, and I'm sure plenty of artists will tell me otherwise, but personally I don't have a lot of ease correcting watercolor. Okay. Now, one little detail we can go ahead and add that'll make it a little more special is on those larger bubbles, come back in with a little highlight like that, and it just gives a little extra something. Anyway, this is how to draw bubbles, or paint and draw bubbles using lids.